Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and welcome back to Goose Junkies. This is episode 9. I know it's a day after Christmas at the time that we're making this, but it's still around the holiday times, and we thought that we would do a holiday special because Goosebumps doesn't have many, if at all, Christmas stories. They're mostly in the Tales to Give You Goosebumps book 6, and then you have 12 Screams of Christmas. There's not a lot to work with, so we decided to go to another Sister Arlstein show, The Haunting Hour, for this episode. And we picked the two episodes that were both written by Dan Angel and Billy Brown, who were also the head show writers from the Goosebumps show back in the day. And those two episodes are A Creature Was Stirring and Goodwill Towards Men. So we're going to have a fun time comparing some more modern kids' horror anthology stories with you all. Tonight's panel is going to be rather light because of the holidays. Goosebumps for Dummies got sick, so he could not make it, but he did give us notes to read off. So get well soon, Alex. We miss you and hope to see you on the next episode. Spongy444, he's had some issues getting on past few episodes. Same issue here again, but he also left some notes we'll read off for you all as well. And then Ultimate Goosebumps Man couldn't make it, so we didn't get anything from him. So if you're out there, safe travels. I know you're having to travel for holidays. But tonight we got, me, of course, since you're on my channel, and we have the two golden gooses of this chat. We have Minnesota Goosebumps fan. How are you tonight, Bruce?
I'm pretty good. Hope everybody had a great Christmas. I certainly did. Got a lot of Goosebumps stuff. Probably see behind me. But yeah,
That's awesome.
didn't didn't like either of these episodes very much. So this will be interesting.
All right, and then we have BD Horror. How are you doing tonight, BD Horror?
Yo, 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 people of the night. It's over for Christmas. However, not for the fright and delight. I love Christmas, a festive place. However, I have beef with Santa because obviously I've had a theory that Santa's actually the bill collector and he breaks into my house during the holidays just to get the one up on me. So, yeah, the last time I asked him for stuff, I tried to get some cologne so I could get the ho ho hos, and he gave me Irish Spring body wash. So, if you happen to hear some noises in the background, then maybe the holly jolly fat man locked up in my closet. That's none of your business. Pretend you don't hear anything, and we won't have a problem. But let's move on to Haunting Hour. We got two Haunting Hour episodes. Are they the best ones? Are they ones that are near and dear to my heart? No, but I think they do represent Christmas pretty well. So let's get into this.
All right, BD. So you want to start us off with The Creature Was Stirring?
Yes. So this, first of all, was first time watch for me. I watched most of Haunting Hour pretty much as a kid and even rewatching it now. First time I saw this. So this one basically is about the story of a boy named Timmy. Now he's actually one of the youngest protagonists we've seen in the show, around 7, 8 years old, and he has a dysfunctional family. Right? He's got parents who are basically on the verge of divorce. They're working out a separation, and they always get into arguments with each other about parenting styles and sort of the relationship they have with the kids. The older brother is basically in his teenage phase. You don't understand me. Wants to be on his phone. Wants to basically not have any time with his, fellow family. You have the daughter who disrespects the mom a lot, and then you have poor little Timmy, this guy who wants to unite his family again and kind of bring back that unity, hopefully in the midst of a Christmas miracle. And what ends up happening is on Christmas morning, when they're opening up gifts, they get into another huge argument. They separate from each other, and there's a little ball of twinkling light that ends up falling into one of the presents when Timmy's by himself by the tree. And something pops out of that. And that is a little maniacal creature straight out of the Gremlins movie. This thing is wild and it starts causing mayhem around the house. And first it turns into you gotta believe me, and then people start believing. And then it turns into how are we gonna get rid of this thing? And will it end up bringing his family closer together in a weird sort of circle of life? So this one has a lot of cliches in it. I have to admit that. So for any of you who may not be a fan of cliche Christmas morals, sort of basic acting and stuff like that, this may not hit you as well. But I was in a festive mood, and I think this one represents the Christmas story very well. This episode segment to me had a lot of good emotional aspects to it. I love the fact that the attic scene where they're basically on the verge of death and danger at one point, and they start reminiscing about their old life, why and how things became the way they were, and sort of figuring out how to bond it, how to mend it. You see first the kids start becoming one together. They start unifying with each other. They start persuading the parents, and they start becoming one again. It's a great just overall symbolism and moral message as to how a family can come together amongst turmoil. And I think it's a fun episode because the creature design, first of all, is awesome. I love this thing. Looks like a little mini demon, but it's also got an homage to gremlins. You look at the scaly skin, the green color kind of represents that. And the way it acts is pretty much similar. It basically causes mayhem, it causes destruction, it'll light things on fire, it'll fly around and shred things, it'll attack you, it has acidic breath. It's just a danger to the family. And you really start to wonder towards the end of the climax. You're like, all right, are they really going to get out of it? Because it goes from, all right, this thing is causing trouble, to now it's burning the damn house down. And you're about to burn in that house with it. So I thought that was super fun. I thought it was overall a good story. It's nothing remarkable, but I think it is a fun time. And then the ending. The ending introduces quite a big figure, which I'm not going to spoil right away, but he's quite the holly jolly figure. And you don't really know if he's the kind of superhero or villain in the story. He's kind of a bit of both, and you find out there may have been some ulterior motives behind this creature and how it came into this house. So overall, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's fun. If you're in the Christmas spirit, I think you'll have a fun time with this one. But I want to hear some of your thoughts. So, Minnesota, what did you think about A Creature Was Stirring?
So, as of now, I've only seen 3 Haunting Hour episodes, and I think this is okay. It's very, very, very safe with what it tries to do. I think the whole idea of the creature is kind of ridiculous at one point. Like, you kind of just like, okay, this thing just feels like something out of like The Evil Dead or something, but like more kidified, I guess. Like, it doesn't feel like serious at all. It's like it's one of those like vampire bats mixed with a gremlin mixed with a wizard or something. I'm not sure what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but I wasn't a massive fan of the villain, I guess. The ending is interesting, and to be honest, it felt like a Hallmark movie, and I don't really like that feeling. So, overall, I don't have too many thoughts on it, but I'd have to give it like a 5 out of 10.
That's fair. I think, I guess we'll go into my points before we read off Alex and Spongy's. To me, to add on what Bruce said, a lot of this episode, I think you already touched on this, BD. I can tell that this is one of the first episodes of the show, right? Dan Angel and Billy Brown were dusting off some cobwebs. They made that 2007 movie, Don't Think About It, the Haunting Hour movie. Then they came out swinging with Really You, and then they wanted to kick on some normal episodes. So they had some ideas here, and I can commemorate them for having these ideas to bring to the Haunting Hour IP and making it more than just the short story collections that were the Haunting Hour and Nightmare Hour from the early 2000s. However, they did not do much anything new with what they were doing here. A lot of what this story reminds me of are 80s and 90s Christmas movie cliches that you see in family films. And Home Alone, the Home Alone franchise, I think, has done this setup twice with divorced parents trying to get back together, or parents at qualms trying to get back together with the youngest child who somehow finds themselves in some, you know, unorthodox situations, but their mood for the holidays and the care for the family makes them okay in the end. We've seen this trope time and time again. You can literally look into a lot of family movies, not just in the Christmas subgenre, but that's just a 90s cliche that's carried over in this 2010 show. Been there, done that. The enjoyment factor really isn't all there. However, the atmosphere of the episode is great. I do really feel like you get an intimate setting with this family. It feels like Christmas morning. You have the Christmas tree, the Christmas decorations. The parents, though, they're getting in the way of the enjoyment early on because they're fighting, and then the kids' older siblings suck. If I'm being honest, and that carries through the whole story to me. Because most of it plays out fine. It reminds me of a story from the Tales to Give You Goosebumps short story collection, book 6, Don't Sit on the Grunk, or Please Don't Sit on the Grunk, whatever it's called. It's a better version of that, where you have like a Gremlins ripoff doing mischievous things, and you have the kids experiencing it. This one at least has a moral to it. Okay, even though, like I said, the moral's been done 1,000 times, it's a moral driven story. Now, when you get into the antics of the Gremlin ripoff, yeah, it's kind of hokey. Yeah, it's kind of, whatever. But I do appreciate what they did with this Christmas imp gremlin thing. It looks pretty great for practical. They did practical puppetry on this. And it looks kind of creepy, if I'm being honest. If I saw that thing nearby me, I'd run and scream. I'd be out of the house before I could blink. So, gotta give them props there. But getting into like the whole core of the story here, since it's so morally driven and because it's been done so many times, the execution kind of falls into like, the safe territory, like Bruce said. And then the older siblings, they make such a fuss about what they get as presents early on, and you can tell that they're jerks to the parents, and the whole family's come closer, but the kids are still complaining while the house is burning down after the imp has destroyed everything. The brother's like, "Where's my gadgets?" The sister's like, "Where's my clothes? What am I gonna do?" They still care about that stuff. They're not apologizing for the quality of gifts they were given from their parents, and because they fight, do you see the parental styles? The father's trying to win over the older brother by buying his love. It fails. The daughter stuck up, doesn't appreciate her mom. The dad tries to punish the girl, but the mom doesn't want that. So you see this trope being done. We just talked about it in a past episode, The Tale of Vampire Town, where you have conflicting parental styles. But even then, you get a sense of why they're at odds with each other and why they separated, but you don't really believe by the end that they just agreed to stay with each other to keep the family together. You can tell they just don't get along. So, there's lack of believability in that. The ending itself is kind of weird. The whole, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's a scene at the end involving a limousine, and a certain holiday figure is in said limousine. It may have been involved with this imp gremlins creature the whole episode. And while it's ambiguous, I think for a reason, I kind of wish they leaned into it a little more. If it was supposed to be like this person is the villain of the story, I'd rather see that than just some cheap Gremlins ripoff. Just go all out bonkers with it. It just comes off like a big missed opportunity of an episode, but I still find it good, more on the upper end. There's nothing special about it to put it above in that very good territory for me. Those are the episodes that I genuinely like and like to go back and revisit. I don't revisit this one often. So yeah, I get this one about like a 3.9 out of 5 stars. I don't know what else to say. But let's go ahead and read off what Alex had to say, and then we'll read off Spongy.
All right.
Bruce, you want to add on to anything while we're in intermission?
Not much besides the fact that I completely agree with everything you just said besides the rating. I think that for some reason this is one of the most popular episodes from what I know. I don't really know if it fully deserves that, as it's just really basic the entire time, and I actually have to disagree with the puppet. I think that it looks somewhat menacing. Like, if I saw that in real life, I'd be like, whoa, shoot, and then I'd, like, jump away and run. But, like, if I'm just watching it, there's no threat, really. I mean, besides just the fact that he has fire abilities, I guess. Besides that, I'm like, all right, grab the gun, or something like that. I don't know.
Well, I can understand that, and then also because of what the ending implies. There's also like, was it ever a threat to begin with?
Exactly.
So the ambiguity there. But let's
And
hear what Alex had to say,
yeah,
BD.
Yeah, I mean, I have a comment as well about it, but I'll save it for after this. So this is Goosebumps for Dummies review. So creature was stirring, horrid. This feels like a Hallmark movie, but there's a low budget looking bat monster that spits acid. The characters are awful and the acting is bad. It's extremely cringe as well. And the twist involving a certain jolly fat man was just stupid. Nothing good to say, period. 0 out of 10.
I will say this. Okay, I should have mentioned this. Timmy, the main character of the episode, is like a 7 or 8 year old kid, and for the most part in kids horror, you never see a kid that young fronting the lead of a story, and I can appreciate it as a shakeup, but in concept, he was not that great of an actor or a character. So you had to rely on his cuteness to sell the Christmas charm of the story, which I think is kind of a cheap cop out. I wish there was just more to him as well. But I definitely agree that the acting was rather stiff, even for this show standards, which I think this show, on average, had way better acting than Are You Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps. And this one does feel on that disappointing side with the acting performances, I will say. But BD, you want to add on to anything that we were talking about beforehand?
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe this is not a slight spoiler, but for the discussion part of this video. But I think there is a story out there that basically executed this idea perfectly. And I was gonna say I rewatched it recently. Krampus 2015. If you want to see all these sort of cliches and similar stories done perfectly, watch Krampus 2015. Now I get that it has a higher budget. It has obviously more time, but I think that basically had a lot of similar stuff involving this episode, and obviously this episode came out before that one, that movie. So I feel like it executed it perfectly. It had way more depth involving the family. It did involve a certain holiday figure involved in the story, as well as a companion of his, which is similar to this. But I thought it fleshed it out. It was much more unique and overall a lot scarier. So this to me felt like a watered down version of that, which I still found it enjoyable. However, if someone like obviously Bruce were to think that it's like 5 out of 10, mid, I have no problem with that. I can see why people would feel that way, and I'd say it's justified too. So yeah, that's just what I had to add.
So Alex giving it a 0 out of 10, you think is unfair?
It's a bit harsh. But then again, I don't know his criteria, right? My 0 out of 10s are like CIA Black Ops torture methods for people. Like that's how bad things have to be to get a 0 out of 10. So
Yeah, and a lot of them come from Are You Afraid of the Dark? I'm pretty sure, and we have yet to talk about a few of them. Good lord.
Jesus.
Which which brings us to Spongy. Let's hear what Spongy had to say about this, because I'm curious what Spongy had to say.
Let's bring up Spongy. Okay, so Spongy's thoughts were a fun early episode, corny at times, but in that tongue-in-cheek Christmas way. The monster is cool, and I like the music, has a playfulness to it in a way. It's nice how the family bonds and the ending mostly works. It's messed up what Santa does to them to learn the lesson, but I like it. Has a fun parody element. Tonally, it can be wonky, so it won't be for everyone, but I find it fun. I pretty much agree with that sentiment, so shout out to Spongy.
Yeah, I mean that was as expected. Because Spongy's a lot more nicer and more laid back with these type of things. It takes a lot to really piss him off. But I definitely agree that when he brings up the tone, it's not for everybody. Like I said, we brought this up, all three of us at one point. It plays a lot on cliches. If you're really against the holiday horror tropes, holiday movie tropes in general, you're probably not going to be a fan of this at all because of that. If you have a disconnect from holiday entertainment, this is not going to be for you. And maybe even the second episode we have yet to talk about. But overall, I would say that, while Bruce thinks it's mid and while Alex hates it, me, Spongy, and BD rather enjoy it, which is kind of expected because surprisingly, this episode is divisive out there. It is one of those episodes that people, if you go on Reddit, you'll see disagreements of this. People will be like, "Hey, it wasn't that good." People will be like, "Oh, it's one of my favorite ones. You have to watch this." And there's a lot of all over the place opinions with it. And I think the same thing applies to the second episode. Ironically, this episode was actually the first single episode of the whole show because really you was actually a two-parter special that aired before this episode did. So this was actually technically the first episode of the show. And the last episode was also a Christmas story written by Dan Angel and Billy Brown called Goodwill Towards Men. And this episode stars Joey King playing a girl named Missy. Joey King, she's been in a few things recently. I can't remember what they're called, but I recognize her. And I'm like, oh, a young Joey King's in this role. And this story's kind of, going for a similar moral, but a different story, a different cliche. We're going kind of the Christmas Carol route that kids' horror tends to go down. But this girl named Missy, let's just say this, she is in a rich family. And she's observing her gardeners. There's a father and son duo, and she wants to give them a gift for the holidays. And when she brings this up to her family scolds her and says, they just work for us. That's the gift we give them. We don't have to give them physical gifts. And Missy, you can clearly tell, is a black sheep in her family. She's a good, kind-hearted soul, wants to do good things for people. But her family are snobs. Her parents suck. Her brother sucks. And she decides to go out of her way to do something nice for them. I think she bakes some cookies or something and gives them to the sun gardener. When her family finds out, they fire the gardeners because they're getting too close to the family. And to repay Missy for the kind deed, the son brought her an angel that he acquired from the streets somewhere and says, "Hey, this is a gift for you. Thanks for giving me cookies and whatnot." So she's like in love with this. Her family's making fun of her for having this angel, and she puts it by her bedside to go to sleep and get ready for Christmas morning the next day. And she wakes up to this angel coming to life, putting fire X's on the doors of her family. And she's petrified. She runs down to her Christmas tree. She passes out. And then she wakes up in an alternate reality. And let's just say this alternate reality has put her family into the shoes of the poor. And they must go live in the poor slums and shanty huts. And they have to learn for a day what it's like to suffer on Christmas. And let's just say something might happen. Might help the family, or maybe just Missy herself. And we get a sense that the moral of the story is the rich deserve Christmas too. And that is literally the moral that they share at the end of the episode. And that's how the show ends. A Haunting Hour ends on that moral. This is another one of those moral-driven stories because for some reason, Dan Angel and Billy Brown, when they write Christmas episodes, they have to interject morals. This one, I think I liked more than A Creature Was Stirring. And, we're getting into the retread of the Christmas Carol idea, but off the bat, I think I like Missy's character more. I feel like you can sympathize with her more than Timmy, because kind of like Timmy in the former episode, they have deplorable family members that make them look more sympathetic off the bat. So it's easy to kind of plug it in. But I think Joey King's performance was really good here. And I actually think that her parents did a good performance playing the bad guys. Her older brother did good. There's no bad acting performance here. Not the best in the show, not the most iconic, but definitely serviceable. I like the setting changes we get throughout the episode. I like that we go from her house to the homeless shelter, and we see different aspects of this town that they live near. I think that's cool. A lot of the times in these episodes from this show, they just stay in a house the whole episode. So having some sort of significant setting change is fun. And the moral here is where it loses me, if I'm being honest. I pretty much don't think this episode has hardly any flaws. Because at the end of the day, it is doing something different with the trope. But when you get down to the execution by the end, that's where the problems start to kind of show their head. Um, it's very rushed in the final act. The final like 6-7 minutes. Good lord. Like the parents, the older brother, they're awful, right? They're huddled around a fire in the shanty hut, and they are fighting over a bag of chips or whatever. And the daughter's like, "Well, why don't we help share the food with the homeless?" And they're like, "Why would we do that? This is our only food." And she's like, "You're missing the point of why this happened to us. We have to help the less fortunate." And they just stare off like they're bewildered that she just takes the bag and gives it to somebody less fortunate. And when they go back into the hut, they're like, "This is awful. We're going to have to fix this later." They never learn anything. Very similar to the other episode. They just don't learn anything. And then the forced moral of the rich deserve Christmas too. You know, I think it would have landed better if the whole episode spent its time on having the family go through this homeless thing from the beginning. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Could have been way better. But I think this one is a mild step up from the other one. So that's my thoughts. I'll pass it over to you all. Whoever wants to take it over first. Bruce, what did you think about Goodwill Towards Men?
It's rough. I actually would say this one's a bit worse. Not sure the exact rating I'd give it, but the family is insufferable. It's hard to watch. I also think the moral is stupid, like just really dumb. Like I've never I've never really thought of, you know, the rich not deserving Christmas. Like that just doesn't that thought has never appeared in my mind, or I've never heard anybody say that before. So I'm like, what are you trying to go for here? And I thought the other one looked like a Hallmark movie. Guys, this one is like it takes it up to it puts the pedal to the metal. That's all I'm gonna say. It looks nearly identical. It looks like modern day Hallmark Dookie that just gets plopped onto millions of TV screens across America. And it's just not something I enjoy personally. If you do, the more power to you. I could not get into this one for the loving God of I just don't even know. I can't stand it. I thought it was bad. The acting was mid. Uh I don't really enjoy the main character, and it overall reminds me of Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 3 with the whole you have this one like super loving character as your main character, and then like the rest of the characters are just like absolutely terrible, and you can't stand them. That's what it reminds me of.
But, one thing to add to that, I will say that at least Missy was rootable. If she was unlikable, I think it would make it even worse. Because if she was like her family, no, that's not gonna fly. It would just be terrible, like from start to finish. But the fact that she's like at least rootable and at least likable, to see the ending that we got with her, I thought was rather nice. But like I said, going back to the moral, the whole moral, the rich deserve Christmas too. BD, take this over. What to start off with that, and then go into your thoughts. What do you think about the moral of this, and then tie that into how you feel about the episode?
Yeah, so the moral of this where it's very much, highlighting social class. And I was honestly, as much as I personally do not care about rich people, horror stories, and social class, I was like, all right, I get where this is going, mostly because it's very blatantly obvious where it's going throughout it. And then it takes a 180. And I'm talking about 180, definition of 180, because I thought that I knew where this moral lesson was going to go. Where, okay, the family's going to find out. Okay, you know what? Poor people deserve Christmas. Sounds ridiculous for me to say out loud. Yes, it does. But yes, poor people deserve Christmas. And you know what? We can get along with poor people. They are not sewer scum rats that we need to keep under a furnace. All right. They are people too. And then there is this twist that I was not expecting, and it completely retcons any sort of moral lesson that was going for. And it actually puts a pivot in a certain character's, I guess, philosophy that I wasn't really expecting, because you expect this character to be going for a certain thing, and then the action is completely in a different direction. I'm keeping it vague because I don't want to spoil. It's very easy to spoil where this story goes. But yeah, I thought that the moral was all right. It's to the point. But and let me, I guess, give you my thoughts about the episode so we can lead into this. I just, before going into it, I have to agree with Bruce. I think this is a bit worse than A Creature Was Stirring. So mark that. I agree with Bruce. Me and Bruce agree. All right, Christmas miracle right there. We agree. Fist bump. However, not for the exact same reasons. I think that Missy is a great character. I think she's, obviously morally right. I think she's fine. She's enjoyable. However, here's my main sort of thing about this episode. It is so in your face, on your nose throughout the entire episode, involving everybody is terrible in this family. Missy is this absolute saving grace. She's as good as an angel. Take that as you will. She's an angel. Her family are these devils that, are rich, snobby, the embodiment of, being wealthy and bad and ignorant. And overall, this to me doesn't really feel as much like a Haunting Hour episode. If you were to show me this, I would not recognize this as a Haunting Hour segment. You have the whole family being this way. You have Missy being great. And my main problem with it is, okay, I like the villain. I think the villain in this story is creepy, offers a nice twist, has a interesting religious imagery to it that I feel like they could have done more with. But the actual suffering that the family goes through in order, like, as the climax of the story, it's not suffering. Yes, they become poor, yes, but they're hungry for a couple of hours, and then it ends. That's it. Literally, they become poor, they go to the slums, and they don't suffer. They don't see how bad things really are, like experience how bad things are. No, they see people suffering, and they're like, oh my god, those are homeless people. I read about them in books, and they're gathered around fires, and they're suffering, they're cold, they have nothing to eat, and the main brother robs a bag of chips and a sandwich, and then the angel, who mind you, this girl is like, please, I can teach my family, please, I can make them learn the lesson, just give me that Christmas miracle, that saving grace. This damn angel gives her a $5 bill. If that happened to me, I'm not praying this thing anymore. I'm gonna be homeless then. At that point, I'm just join them. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna hustle my way, sell some crack. We're gonna hustle in these streets. We're gonna get our money back. Cause you gave me a $5 bill. That's your Christmas miracle. A $5 bill. All right, a $5 bill. I could have found that under a rock. And she brings it to the vendor. Sir, that's my brother. Here you go. Here's this $5 bill. And then gets the food. And as Completionist mentioned, she gives it away, and she directly tells them, hey guys, sort of breaking the fourth wall in terms of the Kansas story. Hey guys, you might want to trust these homeless people, because that's how we get out of this situation. And they're like, what? Huh? Homeless? Huh? We're not going to trust them. And then they don't learn any lesson, right? They're still idiots, even though she's telling them, guys, please, can you just act like you care about homeless people so we can get out? They don't listen. And then after sleeping in a tree house, which sounds like a nice vacation, sleeping in a tree house with each other and spending some family time, all of a sudden reality gets changed. And a brand new storyline takes place where, and I think we might have to spoil a little bit. You know what? I'm not going to directly say who's involved, but let's just say a certain character gets involved within a brand new family. And this brand new family is their ideal family that they always wanted, which means that the previous family or previous characters learned zilch, nada, nothing, down the drain, no point in this entire episode. Instead of learning a moral lesson, which they were hammering and hammering and hammering and hammering throughout the entire episode, It goes straight down the drain. There's no point in what they went through. There's no point in a certain character's motivation to teach her family. It all goes down the drain because she wakes up to gold and roses the next day as her ideal world comes to life. And yeah, this episode to me, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. I don't think it's that good. I think it's really sort of boring. It doesn't really hit it. I like the villain. I like the fact that they tried something new, but it feels like a giant missed opportunity. And this is the kind of stuff that I experienced when I was watching those really boring, forgettable episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark, which to me felt like, why did this need to be a thing? Did you guys really have a sense of direction in what you were doing? And then when the final product comes out, I'm not going to remember Goodwill Towards Men, which compared to Creature is stirring. I'm at least going to remember that one compared to this one. So those are my thoughts. If you enjoy it, again, all pleasure to you. I can understand why. But for me personally, it just didn't hit. And those are my thoughts about it.
Yeah, while we're on that topic of the ending, what that implies for the family themselves. I'm not talking about Missy. I'm talking about her brother and her parents. It's almost like, mild spoilers, that the old versions of them were deleted, and there's like a new version implied with the ending. So I get the sense. What's the point? Why do you make us go through this whole thing about them trying to learn a lesson and then throw it away? And then, like we already brought it up, the rich deserve Christmas too. That is how the episode goes out in a narration of what the moral of the story is. Who are you talking to? Are you talking about her family that we just went through? Or are you talking about her specifically? That's beyond me, and that's where it loses me. But then again, before the final 5 or 6 minutes, I was kind of digging it. It was seeing where it was going to go. It doesn't really tank it fully because at least Missy doesn't, have a terrible ending. She did. I would have been like, screw this. But it is what it is. Let's hear what Spongy has to say, because I think Spongy's going to have a hot take compared to what we said. Bruce, you want to add on to that real quick?
Like you said, with the whole moral doesn't matter at the end of the day, when you're talking about this episode, it reminds me a lot of, just random thought, the Headless Halloween book in the Series 2000 series.
Yep.
It builds up this super great lesson that I'd actually love to teach people or whatever eventually, but it built up this super big lesson that means this whole book's basically entire story, and then it just drops the ball so incredibly hard. One of the worst Goosebumps endings, in my opinion. Basically just completely ruins it and just
I agree.
makes it feel super worthless, and any reread will have significant impact once you think about the ending as you read it.
Yeah, that book, the whole time you start out hating this character. Unlike Missy, you like her from the beginning. You don't like the character from Headless Halloween, but you grow to like him. And then you want to root for him when he realizes that he's messed up in life and he has to fix something and find out the moral. And then the ending just ruins it. It throws it out the tubes. So yeah, yeah, I totally get that. It is kind of like this, but inverted. She's a rootable character. You're hoping that her family catches on for her sake, but then it's thrown out the window with the family. It's just like, bye. We're not going to talk about this anymore. Whatever. And that's just how it feels. So,
Yeah.
let's hear what Spongy has to say.
Yeah, also, before we get into Spongy's comment, just a minor pet peeve as well. This episode has a really weird dynamic between two characters because I'm just going to give you a little situation to not spoil. Imagine there's a cute blonde girl at my school and I bring her chocolates and I invite her to my house. And then my family members start saying, "Oh, are you two going to end up dating? Are you going to marry each other? You guys seem like a couple." And then let's say something happens to me and I get to change reality. And in the next reality, I choose to make her my sister. Does that not seem a slight bit strange, people? That's something that happens in this episode. Just a minor, a little bit weird. A little bit weird that they decided to do that in the episode, especially considering they decided to make weird jokes like that in the beginning. A little strange, but let's get into Sponge's stuff. Hey,
Star Wars at all?
All right, goodwill towards. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, let's get into Spongy's thoughts. One of the most underrated episodes. It goes under the radar due to being under the finale and seems to be mixed for some, which I never totally quite get. The setup is good and feels so unique compared to other horror Christmas stuff. It's not even horror, it just focuses on the sad situation they go through. It's effective and has that good Christmas spirit. Ending is mostly good, but I would tweak it so that she's still in her own family. Otherwise, I like the switch and the final note is nice. Acting is good, mainly from Joey King, and it stands out. I think it's at least fairly great and on a good note for the show to end on. Yeah, it's definitely a hot take.
Yeah, he definitely pointed out how divisive it is. This is one of the ones that are divisive. There's many reviewers. You can go on YouTube, and there'd be people that slam this episode for being one of the worst of the whole show, and then there's people like Spongy who defend it and say it's not that bad whatsoever. If anything, it's somewhere in the middle of the pack. That's kind of how I feel. It's just like it's nowhere near the worst. I think I've seen every episode. Trust me, it's not down that far.
Poof de
but
fromage exists.
yeah, there are when Poof de fromage, when Spaceman, whatever that terrible, what is it? Not near mint. Oh Lord, those episodes, yeah, throw them down there. Don't drag Goodwill towards men. This one actually tries to be at least wholesome and feel good. So at least it has that going for it. And I think that's what Spongy's kind of alluding to. It's the charm of it. At the end of the day, it's not really horror, but it's something that you can like get behind, right? But at the cost, what's the cost of it? When you have a moral-driven story, we've already brought this up. When the moral's kind of confusing, especially when it's driving the story forward, it is what it is. But let's hear what Alex had to say, and then we'll do the showdown and see which one wins out here.
All right, so Alex's thought was goodwill towards men. Meh. I like the villain in this one, and the main character is okay, but it feels like a Hallmark movie still. Acting and other characters are bad, even worse since they're supposed to be unlikable. Good message, but it was still not great. 5 out of 10.
Okay. I mean, that seems to be double or over double what he gave the other episode. I will say this because I don't think we've touched about the villain, because not a lot of people, when you hear stuff like Spongy saying, "Oh, it's not really horror," so who's the villain? Well, the villain is the angel that she receives from the gardener boy, and the angel comes to life. I'm going to say this now. That scene when she's painting the fire X's, that's creepy. That's legitimately creepy. Okay, when she chases Joey King's character Missy down to the tree, that's actually good. That was pretty tense, and I'll give it that. I felt more scared in that scene than I did in the entirety of The Creature Was Stirring, and that should say a lot, because I did give it compliments that the creature looked scary, but every scene that he was in was kind of comedic. This one seemed more serious toned. This villain was more, she had some serious power and was willing to like change her life and mess with it. And that kind of leads into like the religious connotations of it and all that too. But I really don't want to get into that. But all I have to say is the religious connotations. She might be like a fallen angel, maybe a Christmas angel. Who knows? She's out doing her own thing at her own will. So she's kind of dangerous, and I kind of dig that idea. The idea behind it. So where does that leave us with the 2 episodes, right? So I think you two have already made it clear that you are going to die on the hill of A Creature Stirring is better. Fair enough. To me, they're very close. Like in terms of quality, that's just how I see it. They both fall into the moral-driven stories. They kind of fall into the holiday cliches, these morals we've seen done time and time and time again in holiday horror. But where it comes down to me is the main character Missy and the performance of Missy, honestly. if I'm being totally honest. If it wasn't for that, and if her character wasn't that good, it would be lower than A Creature Was Stirring. But I'm going to have to give it to Goodwill Towards Men. Same with Spongy. You can already tell that Spongy prefers that one. And as well as Goosebumps for Dummies. So that makes it 3-5. And Goodwill Towards Men wins this fight. But it's a close one. I'm going to stress this. We're going to all agree. It's probably going to be flip-flop for a lot of you out there. Not everybody's going to agree that Goodwill Towards Men is better. But we totally understand if you think the other one's better. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can see it. So that leads us to our discussion. Dee Dee, you want to start us off? What's our discussion topic tonight?
So our discussion topic for tonight is going to be quite fun because obviously, as you know, Christmas just passed quite literally a day ago. And let's talk about what are our favorite Christmas movies of all time. The most legendary Christmas movies to you, whether that be based on nostalgia, whether that be based on the story, what you love about it, some great things it does. What is your personal favorite Christmas movie? And I'm actually started off with Minnesota because I know this man is festive. He's got the ugly sweaters. He's got the Santa merch. This man pulled up in a Santa hat to the podcast a couple of times. So what's your favorite Christmas movie, my man?
All right. It's hard to pick a definitive favorite, but my big three is Elf, Christmas Vacation, and Home Alone 1 and 2. I kind of just say they're the same movie because they're so similar, and I just watched them both at once. And if I had to pick from those three, if I could pick any movie, if two had to disappear of those three and I could only keep one, it's got to be Home Alone 1 and 2. The most definitive Christmas movie of all time. It has a great meaning, has Christmas spirit galore, and holds up for ages and ages. And I will be sure to keep any sort of DVD of this to show my kids when I'm older. Or I probably won't have any, but same thing. If I do get a wife or something, which won't happen, but I'll show them too. And yeah, amazing movie. Top 10 movies of all time, probably. But yeah, really amazing. That's all I gotta say. It's just a beautiful movie. Another honorable mention because it's just so amazing. If you're just saying what is the best Christmas movie, not my favorite, but the best, Charlie Brown Christmas is also fantastic. Absolutely love it. And I'd have to say has the best meaning of any movie I have ever seen in my life. So yeah, 10 out of
Wow.
10 movies.
I will say this. I've never met a person who disagrees that Home Alone 1 and 2 are absolute bangers in the Christmas genre. But I'll say this off preference. I've seen the first movie so many times and the second movie that I've grown to just appreciate the second movie so much more just because it has a grander setting. It's a whole lot funnier, the funnier bits. You have Tim Curry playing the concierge. I mean, the cast is more memorable. The setting is better. I mean, Kevin is more cutthroat and the traps are better. It's just it's an improvement in every way over the first movie, even though it's the same plot. It's let's not stretch the truth. If you watch the first movie then watch the second one, I could totally see people getting pissed off that it's the same plot. But it's kind of like those justified rehashes that we see in Goosebumps, in my opinion. Like Night of the Living Dummy 2 versus the first book, justified rehash. I'll say that. This is another example. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, justified rehash of the first movie. And I said my piece. BD, what's your favorite Christmas horror movies?
Now, this was tough because for some of you younger viewers out there, you don't know the stuff that me and especially this old man up in here had to deal with back in the day, which was you didn't get to choose what you wanted to watch back when the internet is as advanced as it is now. You had to deal with reruns. You had to deal with movies that always played every year that you had to watch and enjoy. And I had to go through a lot of different ones, including Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer, which has been stuck in my head till this day. My God, I can't get that damn song out of my head. But that's not going to be in this one. So, what are my two favorites? Well, first of all, I kind of have two. And the first one I'm going to talk about is an all-time classic. This to me is probably one of the most unique Christmas films I've seen. I think it has a great style to it, a great aesthetic. It has a really great moral lesson, and it has a main character who you wouldn't really expect to be a main character. And it also scared the shit out of me when I was younger. Yeah, this thing gave me nightmares. This movie for some reason, which is The Grinch, the original Grinch, the cartoon styled one, the old school one. That one to me is one of the best Christmas movies of all time. And the reason why is because you would never expect a character who hates Christmas to be such a beloved main character and so iconic till this day. The idea of having this town that is basically built on Christmas. It's like a cult to them. They worship the holiday and they embrace the spirit in the most exaggerated ways. And then having this super creepy, super ominous guy all the way at the top of this mountain. And I'll never forget, man, if you hear the narration of the Grinch being introduced in the beginning of the film, it's a little bit ominous and a little bit creepy. That's I guess why it got turned into a modern day slasher. This stuff can be pretty creepy to a kid if you're watching it for the first time. Similar to how you'd feel if you watch Wizard of Oz for the first time. It's gonna creep you out as a kid a little bit. And seeing the Grinch, go through all of this effort, all of this meticulous effort to become Santa and ruin this great, great holiday, and all it took was one cute little girl, so innocent, who believed in Santa, believed in the holiday, and was completely unbiased in how much she loved it, for his heart to change. And he gained a heart, he gained a new perspective, and he actually became one of the saviors of the town. That has got to be one of the coolest storylines I probably heard for a Christmas movie. Until this day, it's so iconic. And it also scared me because I had a dream as a kid that the Grinch kidnapped my mother. I'm not lying. That was an actual dream I had as a kid. Messed me up with the Grinch. I'm terrified of that man till this day. However, there's also a second Christmas movie that I most recently enjoyed. And that was back during 2015. And a lot of you may have an idea as to what this is going to be because I kind of bragged about it on my channel and I rewatched it. Krampus 2015 is easily my favorite Christmas horror movie out there. And it's actually broken into my top 3 favorite Christmas movies of all time. I love Krampus because to me, it managed to do something great where it took the cliches that we see in a lot of these Hallmark movies and similar kind of stuff, and it fleshed it out. It made it more relatable. It has a great set of characters. The family is relatable. The arguments this family goes through, the turmoil it goes through, is something that all of us have unfortunately faced within some point in our lives. Similar arguments, similar disgruntled stuff. It has a lot of great subtle comedy to it. One of my favorite parts is when the aunt has to translate what the old grandma is saying, and she basically translate her to saying "we're effed," and the grandma's like, "Yeah, yeah, you're right." It's funny, it's great. You have a great emotional connection to the characters because you see the horrible stuff they go through, and you see them actually kind of become one together. And it's not in a cliche way. It's actually something that you could imagine happening to you in real life, where you're like, you know what? I hate these people, but I need to rely on them. And we're put in the situation where at the end of the day, we're the only thing that we each other have. We don't have anybody else in this town we can trust. We're all alone. We're isolated, and we need to rely on each other. Otherwise, we're gonna get picked off or go crazy. And Krampus, oh my God, what a fantastic! The same way I feel about Grinch. Grinch being this unique character that's like kind of like the opposite to Santa Claus, yet represents Santa in a way. Krampus is like that. He's the shadow of Santa Claus. He's this evil, satanic looking figure in a Santa costume. He's got those creepy helpers. That Jack in the Box, man. Holy Christ, burn it with fire. That is the most terrifying thing I ever seen in my life. And that attic scene is 100% how I would act. When when the main dad looked at the thing and he said, "You gotta be kidding me." That's how I felt. I'm like, there's no way that this thing is his helper. And you got the sled having those animalistic, carcasses on it. And Santa was like this like Jesus statue where he was screaming, and then you got these oxen with these masks on their faces just pulling the sleigh. It's such a great, aesthetically wonderful film. I love it so much. I love the fact that it represents Christmas spirit, and yet it manages to bring a real sense of horror to it. And I think that these two films, I'm gonna take a safe bet. Grinch is timeless, but I think Krampus 2015 will be timeless for the rest of at least my lifetime, because the fact that it's gotten copied so much, the fact that it's so unique and so fun, I don't think it's gonna be touched in a while. And I think they made some rare, great gems that are my favorite Christmas movies. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, to add to the Krampus, there's like 2 low-budget Krampus movies out there, and I've seen them in Dollar Trees. They're 2 different ones, and they're trying to bank on the idea, because Krampus is a public domain thing, that it's the 2015 movie. No, you have to say Krampus 2015, because if people go out there and look up some movies, there's many of them. So be warned. Go watch the 2015 one. That one is definitely the best one. That's with Adam Scott and I forget who else is in it, but Adam Scott's hilarious. All right, so I guess I'll do mine. I have a lot of unorthodox ones because, when I was a kid, I had 3 staples. I had to watch these every year, every single year. The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. Fantastic movie, classic Disney Christmas movie. I've never met somebody that hates the Santa Claus. It's not like a Christmas Story where you get a lot of divisive opinions about it or anything. But the Santa Claus I had to watch. I had to watch Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, specifically that one. Because if I didn't watch that one, I felt gypped out of the first one because I thought the traps were better in the second one. And the third one was Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, a lot of people think that this movie's like really dumb, really stupid. But that's why I love it. Because when we're talking about holiday movies, you get wrapped up a lot of the times in the morals and the cliches and just the tidy bows that the holiday stories tend to, bring. But Jingle All the Way is pretty much my childhood favorite. And I have one I want to some other things I want to talk about after it. But I still love it as an adult because it talks about the perils of capitalism during Christmas time. The dad, workaholic, away from his son, trying to make that money. Son wants a Christmas gift. He's totally spaced out his son. He doesn't have any time for his kid because it's the 90s and this is the trope. Dads don't have time for their kids. So he tries to go out and buy this present, and he spends the entire movie suffering because of him being a terrible father, not being active for his kid. He has to pay the price. And the whole movie's talking about this. His wife's thinking about, hanging out with his neighbor, and his neighbor has the hots for his wife. He's being trailed by the mailman Sinbad. He's hilarious in this. They're both trying to get the poor mailman has to work every day of the year, every day of December, so he has no time to hunt for his son. So both of them are just, going at it. They have great chemistry. The final act is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. But it's still heartfelt. It's not your everyday Christmas movie, and that's why I love it. It's just a lot of excitement. But over the years, not quite a Christmas movie, but it's definitely a 2-part episode from a show. It's from Creepshow, and it's Shapeshifters Anonymous. The first time I watched this episode, I was blown away by how just insane and just crazy it was. And I love it. I watched it again for the holidays, and it just gets better with age. It's like fine wine. You have pretty much a werewolf story, but it's were people. It's not just werewolves. You have like were pigs, and they meet, were cats. They meet in this like support group of sorts. And the origins behind were people and how this connects to Christmas and Santa Claus is insane. Absolutely insane. And when I say that this final act is one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed in Christmas horror, I mean it. It's just beautiful. It's poetry in motion. Definitely one of my favorite Creepshow stories of all time. And I'm glad that it's a 2-parter because it deserves it. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. And then I guess another thing I want to mention here, I kind of struggle considering this a Christmas movie, but it has Christmas elements in it, and it's a comedy movie. It's Step Brothers. Love Step Brothers. It has some Christmas elements in it. Like I said, it's not the focal point. That's why I like it, but it does have a heavy amount of it in there. But yeah, those are my picks.
Also, give a shout out to White Christmas, the black and white movie. You should also watch that as well. It's a nice, feel good movie. So if you want some old school Christmas movies, watch the first White Christmas. It's a good one.
All right. Does anybody else that typed anything mention any of their movies like Alex or Spongy?
I think Alex did, so let me pull up his. I'll
Alex
check
did? Okay.
Spongy's.
I'm surprised nobody said Die Hard either, because don't forget that is a Christmas movie.
Oh, I should have mentioned Violent Night. Violent Night is a fun movie. If you want to find, action-packed.
Violent Night's a banger. I saw that in theaters when it came out. That was fun.
The new Silent Night that came out recently wasn't that good, but Violent Night is good.
Yeah, my only issue with Jingle All the Way, I love that movie, but the ending is terrible. The rest of the movie is just amazing, and then the ending, it's like, that's like if a serial killer killed your mom, and you're like, Merry Christmas, and then handed him a present.
I mean, okay, a lot of people hate the ending of the movie, but it's genuinely fun. Like it's not your average Christmas movie. There's a lot more to divulge into, and you clearly can see what it's commentating on. It does have the '90s tropes. Some of them, like the deadbeat dad, the dad, like Jack Frost, like Michael Keaton, the Michael Keaton movie. Same idea there, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's see Alex's thoughts. He says, I could have said Home Alone. I could have said Elf. I could have said The Grinch. Oh, you should have said The Grinch. But I'm going to say, better watch out. Don't watch it if you're a young child. This movie is very fun and memorable. It's got a good amount of blood and a great plot and a set of characters. Also an awesome ending that speaks for itself. I don't have any other faves that probably aren't mentioned. Plus, I'm a Grinch and I honestly don't like Christmas. Anyway, whoever's reading this off likes women with hairy armpits. Well, all right, oh, brother. Whoever's reading this off likes women with hairy armpits. Have a good night. You know what? I'm never reading anything from him again.
Better watch out. Is that a horror? I've heard about that. It's not Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 3. Better watch out. It's I think another movie.
It's like a movie that it's extremely graphic. We probably shouldn't say anything about it here. It involves some interesting stuff.
What the heck? I just looked it up. All right, yeah, let's not talk about this.
Not safe for podcast. Not safe for podcast.
Not quite.
Edit this out.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding.
All right, so that was a great episode. I had a lot of fun. I hope everybody had a great holiday, by the way. Merry Christmas to you all, and a Happy New Year. We're going to start off the new year with episode 10, the 10th episode of Goosejunkies. I can't believe we've hit a milestone episode, y'all. It's been amazing. And we decided to do, because it's a new year, new year, new moon, full moon, we're talking about werewolves. And we decided to, instead of going the cliche, let's do Fever Swamp first. Now we're going to jump right into Werewolf Skin. Werewolf Skin is going to go head to head with a Haunting Hour episode and short story, I think. Right, BD? It's a short story. It's called Nightmare Inn. And we're going to have a lot to say about those two, because Werewolf Skin, if you don't know, is my favorite Goosebumps book of all time. And I have to rewatch Nightmare Inn. I really don't remember a lot about it, and that's not really a good thing because I'm a werewolf enthusiast, but we're going to see where that goes.
I've seen Nightmare Inn recently. Fantastic. So I'm
all
waiting
right,
for that episode.
Let's see how this divulges. I'm excited. And for the discussion, we're just going to talk about werewolf movies. I think that'll be a fun topic. Go over Silver Bullet, the Howling franchise, Wolfman, you name it. We're going to talk about it. Some fun ones. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. That's one of my personal favorites.
Not the Howling. Not the Howling. But everything.
No.
All right. Since it's just us three tonight, let's just say our goodbyes and get out of here. We hope to see y'all next time for episode 10. Thank you all for the support. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and do so. If you like the video, please like. I will have all the information for Bruce at Minnesota Goosebumps Fan and BD Horror down in the description and in the comment section, as well as our other panelists that weren't here tonight. I'll have Goosebumps for Dummies information, Spongy444, and Ultimate Goosebumps Man's information. Just please don't DDoS them offline. That'll be great. And hope you have a great new year, y'all. And we'll see you in the future. Take care.
Bye, guys.